This week, I am back with more NBA, of course, as I want to revisit my thoughts on the Milwaukee Bucks and discuss their recent struggles to start the season. It's looking kind of ugly over there in Milwaukee right now. And then I also want to touch on the Philadelphia 76ers, who are also having a slow start to the season thus far. On the other side of the spectrum, though, the nominees for the 2025 Grammys have been released, so you know I got to share my thoughts on some of those categories. And then for the last verse, I will discuss the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers, who are on an outstanding start to the new year, before ending with our very first dog of the week for this NBA season. So I'm very excited to reveal who that is as well. So a lot of heat coming your way today. Get ready to hear my thoughts on it all right here on Hip to the Games. Welcome to Hip to the Games, the podcast for you, the basketball junkie and the hip hop head. I'm your host, Desmond, and I too have had hoop dreams and enjoy the beautiful genre of hip hop and its history. Together, we will enjoy some of the greatest albums, songs, artists, players, moments, teams, and so much more, while even mixing the two on occasion, all in my hope that you remember why you love both or either of these to begin with. You'll soon understand that Hip to the Games is more than just a podcast, it's a lifestyle. And if you were looking for a platform that combines both basketball and hip hop, you've come to the right place. Welcome to another episode of Hip to the Games. Shout out to you if you happen to be a loyal listener and know that you are indeed hip to the games. And if you are new to H2DG, welcome to the fun. I am happy to have you here. If throughout this episode you do like what you're hearing, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever platform you're listening on or watching on to stay tapped in with all things hip to the games. Those are always appreciated on my end. You know, it always means a lot for you to review and hit those 5 stars on the audio platforms, hit subscribe on YouTube so you can always stay in the loop of what's going on with the podcast, especially as we're getting closer to that 100 episode milestone. And of course, before we get into today's episode, though, I got to get my pregame shout outs out the way. The first one always goes to the creative director, Jesus Christ, for another H2DG episode, as it's always a blessing to get in front of this microphone and do what he's placed in me to do. And the second one goes to my 19 Media Group family for the opportunity to represent the home team. You see that blue and white logo every time you tap in with Hip to the Games. That's the home team. Be sure to follow 19M Group on Twitter, 19 Media Group on Instagram, 19 Media Group on YouTube to follow everything going on with the network. We have a variety of shows around sports, music, culture, hosted by some passionate independent podcasters. And I'm sure you can find another teammate of mine to support, whether that's through likes, comments, reposts, listens, views, merch support, whatever it is. All of that is seen and appreciated. I know I can speak for myself when I say that. And I'm sure, you know, they feel the same way. So with all that out the way, though, we can get right into today's episode. All right. So if you are a returning listener, you already know the drill. All right. But if you are new to the show, this episode is going to be organized by the format that pays homage to the classic hip hop song structure. All right. I got 3 verses for you today, which represents 3 topics for the show. The first verse always sets the tone. The middle one brings the climax or rising action, if you will. And then your last verse always has to be the haymaker. You got to have your best verse for last. And since we always got to start verse 1 off with a bang, I got to start with 2 Eastern Conference contenders who are looking like the total opposite of the word contender right now. But real quick, before we really get into that, with the NBA season underway, listen to how you can score big with the help of H2DG's latest sponsor. The Emirates NBA Cup is here, and you can win big getting in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All 30 teams split into 6 groups every Tuesday and Friday, playing for the right to advance in the single elimination in-season tournament, culminating in the NBA Cup Championship in Las Vegas. First time? Here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers, yes, I'm talking to you rookies. Bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook because 2 points is 2 points, no matter how the ball hits the nylon. And every point counts with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code BASELINE. That's code BASELINE for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/bball. That's dkng.co/bball. H2DG is working in affiliation with DraftKings and will be compensated for your patronage by utilizing the link provided. All right, so as I get into verse one here, I want to talk more about the recent struggles of the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers. And let me start with Milwaukee because just last episode, I was vocal of how optimistic I was that they would be a better team this year. And while Chris Middleton is still out with injury, partially I was correct in the sense that Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard have looked great, in my opinion, to start the season. I know Dame has some kind of more lower shooting numbers, more specifically behind the 3-point line in his career, really this year. But like other than that, I feel like he has that bounce in his step. He has that confidence about him that he didn't always show last season. So I feel like him and Giannis have been playing great, but everybody else, not so much. I mean, especially on the defensive end, because that's the thing that stands out the most about the Bucks is that both Damian Lillard and Giannis have had some outstanding individual performances. Sometimes both of them going crazy in the same game, right? Only though for the Bucks to still lose those games, and that is always a telltale sign of what's going on in the organization. When your two best players, these are all NBA level talents, they're hooping, and you're still losing games, whether it's close games, double digit leads, like that's a bad sign. And from what I've seen, a lot of their flaws have come on the defensive end. I know everybody's talking, oh, well, they're just an old team, which again could be true, right? Damian Lillard has that mileage on him. Giannis Antetokounmpo has that mileage on him. Chris Middleton, again, he has yet to play, but he has that mileage on him. A lot of guys are kind of building that. And Brook Lopez, right? Class of 2008, he's got a lot of mileage on him. And I think at this high-paced NBA game nowadays is dangerous. I think again we're seeing so many injuries this first couple weeks of the season right now. And like again, the Pelicans once again have just taken a hit. They have so many of their players out right now. Like I think it's a deeper issue of the kind of fast pace. Like low key, the NBA game needs to slow down again, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon, just because of the entertainment value of this fast paced league now, and just the pace and space, all of those things. And forgive me if you can kind of hear outside my window there cutting the grass. So if that does kind of get into today's episode, I do apologize about that. Please bear with me. Uh, but moving forward, yeah, it's really interesting to see what the Bucks are going through right now. And I feel like again, to me, it's all defensive. They've been defending like there is poor communication on the floor, and really have lackadaisical effort, in my opinion. It reminds me when I first saw them, I was watching that game versus the first game versus Cleveland when the Bucks were at home, and Dame hit that clutch shot, but then Donovan Mitchell ended up hitting the game winner. I was watching those highlights back, and it it reminded me, watching the Bucks on defense, it reminded me of when you join a basketball team and that first practice, nobody is really talking that much because there's like zero chemistry. Everybody's assuming what the other is going to do. Nobody really has that instinct to just say, call out switches, call out screens, all those things, because you just lack chemistry with each other. You're so focused on trying to feel everything out, you forget to speak things out and communicate, right? And that's what their defense kind of looks like to me. Um, I think, like I said, I went back to watch some of that game versus Cleveland, and they had a lot of miscommunication and a lot of lackadaisical efforts in that game on defense. And there was an instant, was the Cavs, they ran a pick and roll on the right side. And, again, as we've seen more and more in the past decade, right? most teams will choose to ice the screen, right? Because in basketball, you always hear no middle, no middle, no middle, right? You do not want players to have access to the middle of the floor because at the middle, you can see everything, right? You have a clear shot at the rim, right? You're right lined up with the basket, all those things. Um, it's a vulnerable position to be in when you allow players to continue move middle. So most teams, when you have a pick and roll on the right side or the left side, you're going to force the ball handler to go towards the sideline, right? You're going to ice the screen. And, that's a situation where the on ball defender forces the ball handler to dribble towards the sideline, right? Or going away from the middle. You would essentially force them to reject the screen, right? And so while the on-ball defender is forcing that ball handler towards the sideline, the help defender, which is usually the center, right, or the big man, comes up to trap the ball handler, right? So you essentially have a little double team right there. But at the same time, you're not worried about rotations in this situation because even if the ball handler decides to just pop it back out to the shooter who is going to set the screen, that big man can still has time to rotate from that trap to make a closeout on the shooter, right? So and then likewise, right? Ice essentially contains the pick and roll, so the ball handler neither has an easy pocket pass to the big nor an easy path to the basket if they decide to keep the rock. So ice situations have become very common, very kind of a default method, especially when you have pick and rolls on the wings. And like I said, it's really a containing method, right? You force the offense to make a decision, right? And it's always a good decision to make. But I didn't see the Bucks do that, right? They did not do that. In fact, on that play, Gary Trent Jr., who was the on-ball defender at the time, not only did he not choose to ice the screen, but he didn't even make the effort to fight over the screen. And it led to an easy, if I'm correct, it led to an easy basket inside for the Cavs. And then there was another situation where the Cavs, I believe they drove baseline and they forced the defense to collapse in a successful drop off pass that led to an open bucket inside. And the thing about this play was that the Bucks did a solid job stopping that initial drive, right? And trapping the ball handler as he tried to drive baseline. But the thing is, Pat Connaughton was the help defender in that situation because there were two. I believe it was like Brook Lopez. I want to say Brook Lopez and maybe somebody else, or maybe even Giannis. I can't remember. But you know, that forced Pat Connaughton to be that guy that was kind of had to communicate what Brook Lopez couldn't see behind him. And you could see, I believe it was Evan Mobley kind of just sitting in the paint waiting for the rock, right? And like I said, the Bucks did a good job stopping that initial drive. But when I saw Pat Connaughton in there like that, I think he read the pass too late. And at least from our angle, right, like from the viewership angle, you know, he failed to properly communicate that there was an open man waiting for the easy score. And I feel like he just didn't know whether to kind of come up and maybe try to stop the pass, but at the same time realizing, Evan Mobley's got a height advantage on me anyway. I don't want to get just an unnecessary foul. Like, what do I do? I feel like there was hesitation there. And, he failed to communicate that. And my first thought though was like, Pat Connaughton came into the league in 2015-16. How many times has he been the last line of defense in his NBA career? Why is he even in a position to where he has to do essentially what is Brook Lopez's job or even Giannis's job, right? Why is Pat Connaughton in that kind of situation? Just like they wouldn't want Brook Lopez on an island against Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell, why would they want Pat Connaughton in a position where he has to make sure 7-foot Evan Mobley doesn't have an easy look at the basket? Little things like that matter in the grand scheme of a game, especially in this kind of game. Like I said, that ended with a Donovan Mitchell game winner. It was a winnable game for the Milwaukee Bucks. And those are plays you're going to look back on and wish you handled differently because it might have changed the outcome of the game. And, again, I understand NBA players aren't superhuman. They don't have spidey sense. They don't have unlimited stamina, right? They get tired. And I can only imagine how tough it is to try to keep up with the pace of the modern NBA, right? While having to guard so many pick and rolls with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell as primary ball handlers. It's very easy for me to sit in front of this microphone here and act like that execution comes easy. Defensive lapses and poor communication happens way more often than we think. But too many times in a game, And your favorite team won't be going home with many wins over the course of a season. And to me, it even points to a bigger issue of the NBA moving towards offense, being the new defense nowadays, right? I just alluded to this earlier. Players don't necessarily want to buckle down and play defense anymore, play intense defense simply because they would rather expend that same energy answering the opposing team's buckets, right? The offense becomes the defense. In a back and forth game, most teams resort to that philosophy because making is at such an all-time high. Why am I going to expend all this defensive energy if Luka Doncic is going to hit a 30-foot step back over me anyway? I think a lot of that mindset happens in the league nowadays. But that said, the Milwaukee Bucks could certainly benefit from a greater pride in individual defensive effort and improved communication and rotation, something they were always good at, right? I saw that clip again in the 2021 finals versus the Suns, where even though the Suns ended up having a nice drop off to DeAndre Ayton and he got an and one, their rotations were excellent that year, right? Having Drew Holiday, having Chris Middleton, having Giannis, having PJ Tucker, the rotations were immaculate, right? And the Milwaukee Bucks were always good when their defense was good, honestly, had more priority over their offense. And we're not seeing that now. We didn't see it last season either. And it's showing. It's showing in their record, it's showing in their struggles. And it's going to be something for them to think about. Unfortunately, it seems as if Adrian Griffin, who went 30-13 in his short tenure with the Bucks, he worked to address that, right? No matter how they felt about him as head coach, he went to address that, and it was showing, right, in a 30-13 record, as opposed to Doc Rivers, who hasn't really made those adjustments. And now you're hearing rumors that Giannis wants out. They're going to trade Dame. They're just going to sell everybody, right? Everybody's going to get dropped off, and they're just going to rebuild. And it's just interesting because they didn't make this team to do that. That was never their end goal in mind. Their point was to get back to an NBA championship. So like the patient person in me wants to see them stick it out and like, yo, figure this out. Like, why are y'all tripping 10 games into the season? 10, 11 games in the season. Okay, if you want to trip around 35, 40, cool. But 10? I don't know. I don't know. I think there's still some decisions that can be made, some things that can be worked through. But I understand, like I said, even with Doc Rivers, right? It's not just the players. There are some coaching flaws here too, I think. Something that I know fans were concerned with going into the season. So it's a lot going on in Milwaukee right now. Like I said, they were always good when they play defense. So I would like to see them get back to that and prioritize that and expend that energy. Because Giannis is going to do what he's going to do. Giannis already has had multiple games this year where he's got like 27 at the half. Like, you don't have to worry about that. When you have Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, you don't have to worry about those things. Buckle down, play defense, and make sure that those guys are going to, because those guys are going to have the ball at the end of games anyway. Take care. A lot of basketball, especially nowadays, is defense. It's great if you can score, but if you're not going to stop anybody, what's the point? And it just comes down to the Milwaukee Bucks. They have a lot of issues right now, but it's gonna one of those larger issues is just coming down to stopping your man. Do you have it in you to stop your man, to make a rotation, to make a closeout, and not jump, leave your feet on a pump fake? All those little things. Because trying to win solely off offense has not worked out, and they need to address it while it's still early, and dare I say, before it gets worse. And of course, that brings me to the situation that the Philadelphia 76ers are in. Because at the time of this recording, they just won last night at home in a close game against the Charlotte Hornets. But before that, they found themselves at 1-7 on the season. And granted, they've been without Joel Embiid, right? And Paul George didn't start the season with the team. But even with Paul George's return, he's been on a slight minutes restriction and has struggled to get into a consistent shooting rhythm to start the year, which again, I think comes from missing those first few games due to the hyperextended knee he suffered from in the preseason. He hasn't been able to get in that regular season mode, right? Like everybody else has been able to get into. His is going to come a little bit slower. And especially with a minutes restriction, it's going to be even harder to get that rhythm that he was used to the last few seasons. Um, and my thing is, just when it seemed like PG was slowly working his way in, though, now Tyrese Maxey suffers an injury versus the Clippers, and now he's going to miss a couple weeks. So, while Joel Embiid is going to come back this week, Paul George is trying to find his rhythm. The Sixers still won't be able to play with a fully healthy group. And as I've caught some Sixers games this year, I was reminded that this team was simply constructed for a fully healthy version of it. It wasn't to, play like this, right? It wasn't to start Kyle Lowry. It wasn't to start Andre Drummond. Like it was to have all this depth supplementing the trio that is Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George. And like I said, it's upsetting to watch their slow start because they have a lot of depth. Like I really like what the Sixers have on paper, and even a lot of they have their bright spots in a lot of these games. But of course, like I said, that's not what their team was meant for, right? It was meant to play with Embiid, Maxey, and George. So to start the year, guys like Kyle Lowry and Andre Drummond have been met with extra responsibility. Guys that are in their 30s, right? Even a guy like Gershon Yabusele, like who made a return to the NBA after 5, 6 seasons after an impressive Olympic run with the France national team, which included what felt like an illegal dunk on LeBron James. Like he's already had some big games and some big moments for the team, simply because they've been so injury riddled already. And which is crazy because like not only has he not played since 2018-19, but even then he wasn't an everyday rotational player. Like homeboy was riding the bench. So like you're relying on him to even step up. And it's like what are we doing? It's gonna look great. It's gonna look great on a random Tuesday versus the Knicks. But what about like over the course of an 82 game season, do you always want to be throwing it to him at the end of games? Not necessarily, you know. So that's something that stuck out to me. I mean, they're in an interesting situation. Again, it's a lot of injury situations going on, and you wonder how that's going to fare as the season progresses because it's that's not what they assembled this team to do. A lot of these guys were thinking championship. Um, it's you don't want this to be your bread and butter. This on and off, you don't want that to be your bread and butter for the 82 game season. And I look back on Paul George's debut in Phoenix, where I thought as a whole, their defensive energy was great. And despite struggling to shoot the ball in the first half, it gradually caught up in the second. Maxey got hot late. He hit some crazy threes that game. Oubre hit some shots. Caleb Martin hit some. Kyle Lowry was looking vintage out there. I believe he had like something crazy like 10 points and 8 assists at the half. He like missed one shot or something like that. He was having a good night. Everybody was contributing. It was flowing. Like I said, Yabusele, he towards the end of the game, he hit 2 threes and got a dunk late, and it seemed like Philly was trying to seal the deal, right? They were getting that cushion and separation from Phoenix, and I felt like at that moment they coasted a little bit. And around the 2 minute mark, when they needed buckets, Phoenix had Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, while the Sixers had a hot Tyrese Maxey but a struggling Paul George. So in a game where Tyrese Maxey should have took the charge, they relied too much on Yabusele to stay hot, simply because again he had that stretch where he hit 2 threes, he got a dunk. You want to feed that hot hand, but again, when you have Tyrese Maxey who has 30 something points, when you have Paul George who looks really aggressive, struggling to shoot but is really aggressive, like that's not what the fourth quarter is for. The fourth quarter is for the stars to show up and get buckets, and that's what Phoenix did very well. That's why they won that game. So, the Sixers essentially gave that game away. Then the following game, in LA versus the Clippers, they had a solid first half where Paul George, he couldn't miss against his former team. He had a hot night that night, but he gradually took his foot off the gas and it was a domino effect from there. Again, it's from the top. Like I said, I've been vocal about this. Paul George, I would say like Paul George and DeMar DeRozan are my two favorite players, and Russell Westbrook, probably my top three favorite players that are active in the game today. Um, but as much as I'm a fan of Paul George, I disagree with the way that he just has taken his foot off the gas, especially in a game like that when he was really rolling, shooting the ball. Like he settled for 18 points on what, like 9 shots or something like that. Um, when if you're cooking like that, you should easily get up almost 20 shots, right? Like he should have kept looking for a shot. Nick Nurse should have kept throwing him that rock, setting up sets and plays and isolation plays so he could continue his rhythm. But again, so once Paul George took his foot off the gas, so did the rest of the team. Then versus the Lakers, right? It was a lot of the same. This time, Andre Drummond finally showed some aggression, likely due to the fact that he was actually involved offensively because he hasn't been playing with the best effort. He hasn't looked as good the last few games. But, they managed to stay in the game. But eventually, again, second half came around and they played just lazy energy, and the deficit only got larger. So in my eyes, the Sixers have been playing, oh, well, we're just waiting for Joel Embiid to come back basketball, right? And play hard to look competitive until your star comes back, right? You want to look competitive, but you don't actually want to be competitive. And thankfully, last night they were able to overcome the Hornets, but just barely, right? The Hornets almost snatched that game from them. So again, this style of play is not going to cut it if you want a championship, like you say you want a championship, especially for these passionate Philly fans that you say, are some of the best in the league, right? You want to play well for them. But that style is not going to cut it if you want to do big things this year. And I was hoping they played with higher energy, knowing that the shots aren't going to be as spread out once they're healthy, right? Because I feel like, in my opinion, you should be like playing your hardest. So it's like, yeah, so when Joel comes back, when Tyrese comes back, when we do become fully healthy at some point, everybody's going to be in a rhythm. Everybody's going to be feeling good. That's what you want to establish moving forward. You don't want to just be chilling with, oh, well, Joel Embiid's out. Paul George is struggling. Now we got Tyrese Maxey out. What are we going to do? Why are we playing pity basketball? A lot of these guys who probably won't get as many minutes when those guys do come back, they should be balling out their minds right now. They should be looking forward to these minutes that they're getting, right? I would like to see the Sixers play with some more pride, play with some more fire, because you're still a good team. You're still a decent team. You just gotta, play with some pride, play with some heart. Um, and again, I think even with that in mind, I just think the Sixers' weaknesses of kind of aging veterans, right, and poor spacing seem to show the most. But even within that, I think two bright spots have been Kenyon Martin Jr. and Jared McCain, who bring youthful production to this team. But until, Jared McCain's hot night last night when he had 27 points and he had a lot of daggers that game, showing his shot creation ability, those two guys haven't played that much. I would like to see Nick Nurse incorporate these guys more into the rotation, and let them bring in energy when they have those dry spells, when they have those lazy efforts. And additionally, I think Paul George needs more mid-post touches especially once Embiid comes back. You can still use those in non-Embiid minutes, so he isn't using so much energy coming off these Iverson cuts, trying to set up PNRs, pick and rolls every time, right? Like that's going to tire him out eventually. He's been good in the mid post situations, but Nick Nurse just doesn't seem to notice that as much. So I think it's a lot. Like I said, it's the aging veterans a little bit, watching them having to take a lot more responsibility with the early injuries. Like I said, the spacing, sometimes when Paul George ISOs, or even sometimes when Tyrese Maxey ISOs at the top of the key, I feel like some guys are kind of inching a little closer for some reason, kind of taking away the driving lanes that they might want to take. And maybe it's credit to the defense. They probably want to shrink the floor on those guys too. So I get that. But yeah, it just hasn't looked pretty. It just hasn't looked pretty. Um, but again, the main thing is injuries. They just got to get healthy. We got to see what this team looks like healthy, and hopefully everybody can get healthy so we can get a true assessment of where they are and what they can look like long term. Because, like I said, I liked what they did this offseason, but again, this team was constructed to be healthy, and until that day comes, we're not going to be able to give a fair assessment of their season. So in the meantime, though, I would like to see them play with more pride, like I said, as opposed to that laziness, so that when they are healthy, it makes it easier for the stars to come back and do wonders for the team chemistry. All right, so a hefty opening verse regarding two of what were supposed to be Eastern Conference contenders heading into the season. But what are your thoughts on the Bucks and the Sixers' early struggles so far? Will changes be made? Dare I say, drastic changes be made? Is there still time to turn it around, though? Or is it already setting up to be a bad season? Be sure to share your thoughts with me in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or at me on the socials at Hip to the Games or Desmond Powell _ to share your thoughts with me, as I'd love to know what you think about each team. All right, verse 1 definitely got us off to a hot start, but I'm just getting started as we transition to verse 2, where I want to flip to the other side of the H2DG spectrum and discuss the Grammy nominations. But first, if you do like what you're hearing so far and you want to know how you can show some love and support to Hip to the Games, here's how you can do that. As a fan of Hip to the Games, not only should you show your love for the podcast, but you gotta express your love for basketball and hip hop. With a wide variety of clothing and accessories, there is always a way to show how much the game of basketball and the game of rap means to you. Let everybody know what it means to be hip to the games by clicking the link in the episode's description to cop some merch and represent the H2DG lifestyle. All right, welcome back to Hip to the Games, where we're going to get right into verse 2 here. And on the hip hop side of things, the Grammy nominations recently dropped, and there are a few categories that I want to look into. Best rap performance, best rap song, and best rap album. Okay, these are always the heavy hitters when it comes to hip hop, the hip hop categories of the Grammys. Um, and I want to share some thoughts on. So let's start with best rap performance. All right, and the nominees are as follows: Enough Miami by Cardi B, When the Sun Shines Again, Common, Pete Rock, and Paz from De La Soul, Nissan Altima by Doechii, Houdini by Eminem, Like That, Future, Metro Boomin, and Kendrick Lamar, Yeah Glow by Glorilla, and Not Like Us, Kendrick Lamar. All right, so those are best rap performance nominees. And I'll say this. So given the definition, right, and presuming that this is what it is, if this is based off live performances, I have to eliminate Like That off rip, because again, it is a turn up song. It is a like a high energy song, and people loved it, right? But from what I saw, Future and Metro didn't even perform that song with Kendrick Lamar. They have yet to perform that song with Kendrick Lamar, who had the verse that really started everything, right? There's almost you could say there would be no Not Like Us if it wasn't for his verse on Like That. Um, and so to me, that's an easy elimination because you haven't even performed the song with the guy that was your big feature on that track. And then I'm gonna eliminate Cardi B enough. Again, it's a hot song in a general sense. Cardi's energy is always on 10. But I'm not all the way sure why this is in the running for best rap performance when they easily could have picked Rhapsody and Erica Badu's 3 a.m. I'm surprised that that didn't get a nomination here. And again, this is no like diss towards Cardi or nothing like that. Like, she's always done her thing, but you know, I would have liked to see the Grammys like actually go more towards the way that Rhapsody and Erica Badu like just seem to mesh on that song, and they've performed it live before. Like it's really dope. It's really dope. And I felt like again, that's like the real essence of performance, right? Like when you can have those live instruments and express that emotion like in front of an audience, and it sounds exactly like it did on the album, like that kind of thing, or even sounds different than the album, but it's special in its own way because it's live performance, right? That's kind of where I see that. And then as much as I hate to say it, I will cross off When the Sun Shines Again by Common, Paz, Bilal, and Pete Rock. I don't know why they eliminated Bilal off this. Like he ain't singing that whole chorus. Um, but because compared to the other songs in this category, to me, adding When the Sun Shines Again is like when the teacher sits the good kid next to the bad kid to teach them example of how to be a good student. It rarely works. It rarely works. I feel like the Grammys know that they won't pick this one compared to some of the other songs on here. But they know that it's more of a lighthearted representation of hip hop, so they want to give it a chance, right? Like they gotta show love to an OG somewhere, so they're gonna throw in When the Sun Shines Again. But at the same time, like I said, I love it. I love it. It hits different with the live instruments. It was dope watching them perform that on Jimmy Fallon. Like I would like to see it win. I just can't see it winning compared to some of the other songs in this group. Um, like I said, no diss because I love that song, but that's just how I see it. And then next, despite my praise for her in our last episode, I gotta eliminate Nissan Altima by Doechii. Her energy is fantastic, and the skill it takes to perform a song like that is impressive. But I just don't see it as strong of a performance as some of the other choices, right? That's really all it is. Even though Doechii, she's great with, from what I've seen, she's great with the crowd control. Like it really seems like when you go to a Doechii show, she's good at making you feel like you're a part of it and having fun. But she loves what she does. All of that joy and that passion exudes when she performs. That's why I would love to see her win something like this. But again, I just think there are some heavy hitters in this one, and it's just gonna prevent some of these other great performers to just not win. Because again, moving on, I think I'm gonna eliminate Houdini by Eminem. Again, I love the nostalgia he brought with his performance on the VMAs. Like I can only see Eminem winning this award because he's been one of, if not the best selling artist since generally since he's been active. Every time Eminem drops, it sells, you know? And I personally though would rather see him win best music video than this category. But at the same time, he did go all out with his performance at the VMAs. Eminem certainly knows how to perform. One thing about Marshall Mathers is that dude knows how to put on a show. He literally knows how to bring his music videos to the big stage. That is something that is almost a lost art in some ways nowadays. So to me, that just leaves Yeah Glow and Not Like Us. Right. These are two of the biggest songs of the year. Like I said earlier, it's no diss to anybody else. I just feel like with these two songs and the electricity they give to crowds, that to me is why they have the best chance to win best performance. But again, if we're like I said, if we're breaking down the definition of performance, Eminem has a chance, right? And even When the Sun Shines Again. But just compared to what Kendrick did, man, with Not Like Us, you know, I think Yeah Glow, she would have the song of the year if it wasn't for Kendrick dropping Not Like Us. And in her own way, she almost brings back that with this song specifically, she almost brings back that crunk era, like Lil Jon and them, where like you play a song and you know a fight is gonna pop off. Like that's literally the purpose of that performing that song live. Because it's hard, but it's like, yo, it's gonna get the crowd rowdy, you know. And this has been one of the hottest songs of the year, and it just doesn't matter how Glow performs the song, it just gets people riled up. That's why, again, that crowd impact is why I have her song in high regard here. But still, it just ain't nothing compared to what Kendrick did at the pop out, performing Not Like Us 5 straight times. And to my knowledge, not taking a single sip of water, and nobody got tired of the song. Like, if that ain't the definition of performance, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. Like, you have your whole hood on fire. Really all of California on fire with this song. I remember saying when he dropped the pop out to me, that was one of those shows where like, oh nah, like if this was the 2000s, you would have bought that joint on DVD the minute you were able to, right? Like that you would have def popped that tape in because it was that special of a moment, you know? And that's the thing about Kendrick, right? That's a credit to Kendrick Lamar. He's always been a great performer. His concerts are always like top notch. That's why again I think he has an added edge here in this category because of his track record with those performances. When you look at what he did with songs like Be Humble and other songs and the way he again I just saw the Rolling Stones, even though they be tripping sometimes too, the Rolling Stones ranked his performance of I think like seventh all time. So, Kendrick Lamar, he is, and I call him, he's hip hop's playwright, man. Like that dude knows how to perform. And what he did with Not Like Us was just so incredibly dope. I just can't see him not winning this category. So moving on to best rap song now, it'll be these nominees. All right. So I have Kendrick, Not Like Us for best rap performance, and for best rap song, here are the nominees. Asteroids, Rhapsody and Hit Boy. Carnival, Kanye, Rich the Kid, Playboy Cardi, Ty Dolla Sign. And once again, Like That, Yeah Glow, and Not Like Us. All right. So the only one that I really wasn't familiar with here was Carnival. And even when I did check it out before this episode, it ain't even on the level of Yeah Glow and Not Like Us to me. Again, shout out Rhapsody for actually being included in this category. But man, like I just said, it's really gonna come down to Yeah Glow and Not Like Us as far as best rap song. Two of the hottest songs of the year. And as much as it'd be dope to see Glow get at least like one dub, you know what I'm saying? It would be dope for her to just get one win. I just don't know if she'll be able to beat the chokehold that Not Like Us had on the world. Don't get me wrong, she will still be very close. But when you look at performance, when you look at the quotables of Not Like Us, the music video, the implications, right? The lyrics, the dancing, right? It just checks every box in terms of not one of, but what the best rap song might entail. I know Glow, she has some, some people, I know people like rapping that song, but Kendrick Lamar to me checks every box as far as best rap song. Like I said, he's already got a higher probability with like that being in there too. So, I feel like with the Grammys, anytime somebody has two nominations in one category, like you pretty much know they're gonna win. It's hard for, because they just have the higher probability to walk away with a win. But yeah, like I said, as far as best rap song, I think this is an easy choice. Not Like Us. Yeah, Glow is probably going to be second. And like I said, given the circumstances of Not Like Us, it's just it went bananas. So it's got to be the best rap song in my eyes. And then lastly, the one that always causes a stir, rap album of the year. And funny enough, I think it's closer than people may or may not think. I haven't really really peeped other conversations about this. But to me, it's kind of close. Um, Obviously, as far as nominees, we got J. Cole, Might Delete Later, Common and Pete Rock, The Auditorium Volume 1, Future and Metro, We Don't Trust You, Eminem, The Death of Slim Shady, and DOGG, Alligator Bites Never Heal. So first things first, while Might Delete Later was cool, it should have been Rhapsody's Please Don't Cry. That was again such a vulnerable album. Rhapsody really uncovered some things she didn't always address. It was really like a therapy session in album form, and yet was equally empowering as she's always, as we've known her to be. She definitely got snubbed in this category. I love J. Cole. That. I love J. Cole, but Rhapsody deserved a spot here. Again, Dochi's album, as I said last episode, it's a fun listen. Still has deeper themes of healing that listeners can connect to. Hers honestly might be the most versatile out of all the ones listed here, to be honest. However, I don't see it overcoming guys like Common and Pete Rock and Eminem. Again, it's tough when you're matched up against the OGs and the legends of the game, right? When you were youngin' and you coming in and you still early in your journey and you already got this dope Grammy nomination, but it's like the heavy hitters are right in front of me, and on top of that, she's a woman, right? The biases that come with women in this industry, right? So they're already, especially being the only woman in this category, you you expect that they're probably gonna slight her just for that. It's in a male dominated industry, right? Um, but it's definitely dope to see her album get that kind of love, and like I said, to me, she's got the most versatile album on here. So low key, she has a chance. Definitely a sleeper pick. Um, but like I said, she's got some heavy hitters with Common and Pete Rock and Eminem. And that said, Eminem's album was really good to me. Really, really good to me. I really enjoyed that first listen though. That's the thing. With Eminem, I enjoyed that first listen because the thing is, I never went back to The Death of Slim Shady, which I think is because this was such a big deal for him, right? To kill his old self, essentially. It's like once he put that nail in the coffin, that that was it. And like the big moment happened, it's over with, we can move on. And I thought, you know, it was incredibly dope that Eminem used the old voice with AI and Eminem was rapping his tail off. Despite what most people think about his rapping style and stuff like that. When you listen to this album, especially that first listen, you realize, yo, Eminem is literally kind of going back and forth between the old way he rapped and the new way he raps, and he's doing both like flawlessly. That to me was like dope. And of course, he had the tearjerkers with "Somebody Save Me," with Jelly Roll, and "Temporary" with Skylar Grey. It's a typical, in that sense, it's a typical Eminem album. You get your raps, but you also get the tearjerker songs that really kind of wrap the album up and give you that sentimental, you know, um, feeling inside. But the thing that like I got a dock points for is that it just doesn't have a ton of replay value for me. So in that regard, it takes a hit. So that leaves two, Common and Pete Rock, and then Future and Metro. And funny enough, the two albums on here that feature a rapper and producer duo, right? Collab. And I feel exactly how I felt last year between Killer Mike's Michael and Drake and 21 Savage, Her Loss. Metro was also a nominee for his solo project last year, so I'm sure he would hate to lose again this year. But once again, you have a hot rap album on one side, and then on the other side, you have this vintage hip hop album on the other. And that's already like two different fan bases, right? You got the older generation and even, people like you and I who really value lyrics and delivery and concepts and instrumentation and quality, right? With this one, but then you have over here where people love the vibe and the hype and the quotables from Future, right? Future's always had like quotable kind of moments and just things that, Future's fan base is really like, really one of the what's the word? I would say one, for lack of a better term, he just has one of the best fan bases in rap. Um, in the sense that people are always pushing for him. You can find a Future fan anywhere, Um, but it's interesting. This is an interesting battle here. Metro has been highly successful over the last few years. He rarely misses with Future. That's going to be a very heavy influence. But truth be told, I just never resonated with Future's music. So I can't speak a lot on it. Just because it doesn't resonate with me. Um, you listen to this podcast, so to no surprise, Common and P Rock, that's more my speed. I could totally see why they win album of the year or rap album of the year. It was inspirational. Common's pen game was, immaculate. It matched Pete's artistry very well. I would love to see the Grammys kind of go back to back. With the hip hop W's after selecting Killer Mike last year, and then letting Common and Pete Rock take it home this year. They would be my choice, though I'm a bit biased. But I think like strictly conceptually, I think Eminem has the best album here. If we're talking concept, Eminem has the best album here. Hype wise, it's probably Future and Metro. Quality wise, it's probably Common and Pete Rock. Um, and like I said, it's a tougher choice this year. What do the Grammys value? Concept, hype, or quality? And even with those three traits in mind, though, like I said, Doechii would be a sleeper pick because I feel like she has the concept, the hype, and the quality. So it's like, dang, like imagine if they went out of left field a little bit and been like, yeah, Doechii got rap album of the year. That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. But just boiling it down to it, I think the Grammys go with Future and Metro. I can't see them letting Metro lose again. I can't see them losing with all the hype they get, especially as a duo. Um, but if they are willing to stray from the popular pick, then I have faith that they would pick Common and Pete Rock. I'm rooting for Common and Pete Rock, but I would not be surprised if Future and Metro get it just because I just feel like they are, what I'm saying? They are there was hot. There was hot right now. And they got a large fan base behind them. So that's that. I think Future and Metro get that rap album of the year, but like I would love for it to be Common and Pete Rock. You see me stressing already. Thankfully I don't have to vote on these awards officially. But these were just my selections on the rap categories of the upcoming Grammys. But I gotta hear from you, all right, especially because I haven't heard every song, I haven't heard every album, I haven't seen every performance. I would love to hear any differing opinions, all for the love of the culture. You know how we rock. Okay, all positive discussion on this side, all for the love of the culture. Who might I be sleeping on? Which ones do you agree with? Who were some snubs that I maybe didn't mention across these categories? Respond in the comments, hit me on the socials. I would love to know what you think and discuss further. But in the meantime, that's two verses down now and one more to go as I want to get back into some more NBA, this time touching on the hot, and I mean hot, start from the Cleveland Cavaliers. But before we get into that, now that the NBA is back in action, here's how you can make sure you never miss any of it. If you're hip to the games, that means you yearn for nonstop NBA action. And thankfully, NBA League Pass serves as your ticket to the ultimate basketball experience. Enjoy live games, on-demand replays, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content across a variety of devices just at the tap of a finger. With NBA League Pass, you'll get more games, and that's regular season and playoffs, more features, including multi-view angles, in-depth stats, and behind-the-scenes stories, and more access, of course. Catch your favorite teams and players anytime, anywhere. League passes for fans like us who live the game. Sign up now at nba.com/LP19MG. That's nba.com/LP19MG. HUDG is working in affiliation with NBA League Pass and will be compensated for your patronage by utilizing the link provided. All right, welcome back to H2DG. We're our final verse of the episode, man. I would be remiss if I ignored what that team in Cleveland is doing to their NBA counterparts right now. That team is balling. 11-0 at the time of this recording, all while generally keeping the same roster as the year before. But here are two key factors that I think have changed this season. Number one, the hiring of Kenny Atkinson as head coach. And number two, the fact that everybody has been healthy to start the season. All right, that was the issue with the Cavs the last two seasons. They had moments where they looked like Eastern Conference Finals threats, but it never gained momentum because someone ended up missing time. Whether it was Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, somebody was out of the lineup towards the beginning of the season and maybe even throughout the middle of the season. But now they are healthy and are experiencing the fruits of that health. And what's even wilder about it is that as of now, Donovan Mitchell's averages are a lot closer to his rookie season than any other season of his NBA career thus far, which to me, all right, again, I haven't caught all the Cleveland games, so you got to let me know, but to me, that is an indicator of sacrifice, where he simply wants to win games no matter how it looks. That right there is what separates the championship teams from the contenders because, you know, when your best player can get to that point where they're like, you know what? I can get 70 points in a game. I can hit the game winners. I can drop 40 like it's nothing. But you know what? What if I, what if I made an extra pass here or there? Maybe we would have won more games. Maybe if I don't know, maybe sacrifice some of my minutes and been like, you know what? Karis LeVert got the hot hand right now. Keep him in, coach. Maybe that would get us closer to a championship. What can I do? I feel like I'm doing everything, but we're still not getting over the hump. So maybe that means I need to sacrifice something so we can get over the hump. That might be something Donovan Mitchell did this year. Again, moving forward, I think Darius Garland, very efficient to start this year. 54, 48, 95 early shooting splits. Doing it in less minutes as well. And even Evan Mobley, he's taking a bit of a scoring leap. I saw Darius Garland give him some praise for saying like, yo, like he's got a little nasty in his game this year, And I think a lot of people have been waiting on Evan Mobley, to increase his offensive aggressiveness the last couple of years. He's got a career best 18 a game so far. Like I said, much to the satisfaction of those who've been calling for his rise a little bit more the last few years. And then Jared Allen is even having a career year in rebounds with just over 11 a game right now. And with the continued contributions of guys like Karis LeVert, unsung hero Ty Jerome, right? He's healthy and he's getting some time. And, even in just 16 minutes, he's averaging 10 points a game. Isaac Okoro and Dean Wade are out there, doing their thing. As Shaq would say, the others, right? They've been just as important to this hot start as the main guys have been. And additionally, I think there's been a good mix of competition too. It's not like the Cavs are just facing like non-playoff teams in this 11-0 start. Like it hasn't been easy. They won a close game versus the Knicks in the Garden. They overcame the Bucks in two clutch games against them. Outlasted a solid Pelicans team and destroyed a Golden State Warriors team. I mean, destroyed them with even though the Warriors have had newfound energy this year. Only time will tell, but they certainly look legit. They certainly look legit. I know that's been the critique of theirs the past couple seasons that, the Cavs, they'll start good, but they won't finish well, but they look legit this year. Um, and of course, a lot of that credit has to go to Kenny Atkinson, who I've said, he has some sort of NBA Midas touch on him because every place that he's either coached or been an assistant coach for has seen some kind of success. In 2019, he led that under the radar, Brooklyn Nets team to, I believe it was the 6th seed in the East. In 2021, he was a part of Ty Lue's staff with the Clippers, which ended up being the first Clipper team to make the Western Conference Finals. And then in 2022, he joined Steve Kerr's staff for the eventual NBA champion Golden State Warriors. And now here he is back as a head coach, this time with an 11-0 start with the Cavs. Like, this dude is incredible. Like, at this point, I want to play for Kenny Atkinson. I don't know what I got to do. Maybe I can just hand water to, I don't know, hand water to the teammates, or maybe I can help the equipment manager with the laundry. I don't know. But at this point, I would love to be next to Kenny Atkinson, because if he got a Midas touch like that, I know my life would improve too. Jokes aside, um, it's been really impressive to watch. And I think according to Kenny Atkinson, something he's really tried to implement with this team is off-ball cutting. He explained to the media after the win versus Golden State how in the past too much cutting was seen as like a weakness offensively, because a lot of teams felt like it just clogged the lane for no reason. And again, when you think back to the old NBA, lanes were already clogged. So just imagine if there was so much cutting going on, everybody just was turned off by the spacing in those moments. But nowadays, there's so much movement and so much more space, and a lot more misdirection, right, in these offenses, that cutting can actually work in one's favor, because if done right, cutting can actually lead to more space, because off-ball movement is tougher to defend and can be used to confuse defenses. So that's another good way to look at it, right? I thought that was really cool. It's nice to see a coach enforce what had become a lost art in this game, right? In off-ball movement, right? He could have said a lot of different things like, oh yeah, Darius Garland's healthy, and Donovan Mitchell's sacrificed, and Evan Mobley's playing well. He could have easily said that, but he said, you know what? Like, we've taken pride in off-ball cutting. And again, which really is a big picture of their selflessness as a team, right? If everybody's cutting, moving off the ball, wanting, because sometimes again, your off-ball movement isn't always for you to score. Sometimes your off-ball movement is to free up somebody else. So again, it's a lot of, it seems like there's a lot of selflessness going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that's why they're winning, man. Those are the best teams to play with are players that are going to be unselfish, especially when your stars are unselfish and everybody just wants to win games, not think about stats and all these other individual, things. When everybody just is bought in, especially to a coach like Kenny Atkinson, who knows the game, who is very smart, who has been on good teams and had success in this league. Like, you're gonna want to do that for a coach like him. You're gonna want to buy into the system, especially when what you have been trying to do hasn't been working. Oh yeah. Like, at this point, like I said, not just Donovan Mitchell, but it seems like everybody's being selfless, and it's showing in the way they're playing the games. I think, like I said, it's playing for each other. Make the right cut, make the right pass, play the game the right way, and good things will happen. And this is a team that trusts in each other. They trust their coach, and it's paying off so far. Hopefully we can see them make a deep run this year, because again, a lot of us have been calling for that. I've even seen people joke that they're just another version of the 2015 Hawks, right? That team that won 60 games. They had 4 All-Stars that season, and even had their entire starting five be awarded Eastern Conference Player of the Month in January. And they did all that and still got swept in the Eastern Conference Finals versus Cleveland. So even if that were to happen, that's still a big leap from where they've been the last few seasons. So in some ways, it would be quite an honor to be the 2015 Hawks. Um, so it would be a great leap of progress for them. I certainly wouldn't mind a Celtics Cavs Eastern Conference Finals this year. That would be really fun. And it would be interesting to see how those individual matchups fare with both teams healthy, right? They got Porzingis, but it's like the Cavs got Mobley and Jared Allen. Is that going to make the Celtics fall in love with the jump shot? Is it going to make them fall in love with the jumper, or are they going to, try to drive and kick? Like, how is that going to look? But staying in the present, Cleveland basketball is on fire right now, and it'll be fun to see how the rest of their season plays out. Big shout out to Kenny Atkinson, and big shout out to Darius Garland for bouncing back against the haters. You'd love to see it. Here's to a dope regular season for them, continued success, and hopefully a long, successful playoff run. So those are just my brief thoughts on the Cleveland Cavaliers and their hot start. They're definitely on my list for teams to watch full games of this year. So, I can improve my analysis moving forward. But in the meantime, I want to know, are you all in on the Cavs, or is it still too early? What are some strengths and potential weaknesses that you're seeing? Let me know your thoughts on the league's hottest team. All right. And while we finished our 3 verses, though, we aren't done just yet, as I got to present our first dog of the week for the new NBA season. Now, many NBA players have been hooping to start the year. All right, most notably, RJ Barrett comes to mind. He seemed to finally take the leap that we've been waiting for now that he's had a full season with his hometown Toronto Raptors, averaging 24, 5, and 6 in the young season, looking more decisive and has that kind of veteran confidence to him. Like, okay, I've been here. I know what I'm doing. Like, I can lead a team. And the games kind of slowed down for RJ finally. And I think similarly, Cam Thomas of the Brooklyn Nets has continued to be that bucket getter that we saw glimpses of the last couple seasons, averaging 25, 3 and 3, who in my eyes, and I've said this before, he to me is like a baby Joe Johnson in the sense of his strength, his mid-range game, the lift on his jump shot. But even with those two guys balling, there's this one other guy, man, who's 31 years old, has finally gotten the chance to be a focal point and has been absolutely locked in. All right, I'm talking about this close to the TV when you're playing 2K, like a guy who has just been shooting the lights out and looking like a first-time All-Star. And that guy is Norman Powell. What a journey for Norm, man. He started out as a Raptor, kind of like this high flying spark plug, but eventually, played his way into becoming a legit X factor for them. And then, eventually when he was traded to the Blazers, he was doing the same thing. And then when he got traded to the Clippers, he was doing the same thing. But this year, with Paul George gone, Norm got the starting spot and hasn't looked back at all, averaging 26, 3 and 2 on 52, 49, 84 splits, a career high 17 shot attempts and 8 3-point attempts a game too. So that shows you how crazy his start has been. All right, I know it's just 10 games, but that is insane. And what I love about Norm is that he hasn't been pumping his chest. He hasn't been playing with his food, right? He is just going to work. I'm talking hard hat, lunch pail. You gonna get these buckets. And he mentioned on Paul George's podcast that he still had aspirations of being an all-star, which shocked a lot of people. It's like, you've been in the league for a minute. You've been a role player. Like, you think you're going to be an all-star in the West, but again, look what he's doing. This is why they always say, believe in yourself. Like Norman Powell this season is the ultimate example and poster child of what it looks like to believe in yourself, trust your work, trust the journey, right? Even though, because it's taken some years for Norman to get this opportunity, but here he is and he's thriving because the years of work and preparation and just, being not being satisfied, but at the same time accepting the roles that he was given to him and and being a faithful steward of those roles, right? So now he can blossom in this role. That's so awesome to watch. He knew his time was going to come and he's shown that he's been more than ready for it. Ekam Nagra of Ball Don't Stop recently compared him to Ben Gordon, and I totally see it. Two spark plugs that were hard to stop once they got it going. They weren't on the Kobe and D Wade levels of two guards, but at the same time, they were the guys that were going to score right with them, right? They take what the defense gives them. They jumped with a lot of elevation on their jump shots, right? Like the similarities are definitely there. Norm has certainly emerged as a legit bucket getter and has led the Clippers in scoring already a few times this year. And it looks like he doesn't plan on stopping his hot streak anytime soon. Like I said, he just got that look in his eye, man. And he's been an underdog. He was patient. He put in the work, and now he reaps an early harvest from his planting seasons. So addition by subtraction, indeed, from Mr. Norman Powell. Shout out Storm and Norman as some call him. The first H2DG dog of the week for the 2024-25 season. And with that, we have made it to the end of another Hip to the Games episode. From the Bucks and 76ers early struggles, the upcoming Grammy nominations, the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers, and the rise of Norman Powell. Lots of hot topics through the NBA and hip hop, but as always, these were just my thoughts. So I want to hear from you. All right, you can tweet the show at Hip to the Games or tag me directly on Twitter and IG at Desmond Powell _ and share your thoughts on any of the topics discussed today, as I would love to hear or read your thoughts. And I simply want to say thank you for listening to another episode of Hip to the Games, all for the love of the best combo there is. And of course, here's a huge shout out to you for being hip to the games and pressing play on your boy once again. Peace out and God bless. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Hip to the Games, and if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit up the socials at DesmondPowell_ and at Hip to the Games on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok so you don't miss out on the fun. And please follow or subscribe to the show and leave a review on the podcast platform you're on right now, as your support is greatly appreciated.